Today I'm taking you behind the scenes to show you what our retirement community did to bounce back after Hurricane Helene. Hi, I'm Sandy from Sandy Over 70. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already. I live in a continuing care retirement community known as CCRC. This means that we have various levels of care available to us, so we'll never have to leave and move again. We have independent living, where I live in a house. We have assisted living, and we have skilled nursing. When Hurricane Helene was approaching, I don't think anyone in Western North Carolina, well, I know no one expected what actually happened, because we don't get hurricanes in the mountains. We get the remnants of hurricanes. We get lots of rain and generally some flooding. But we have never had anything like what Hurricane Helene delivered. It was devastating. I don't think anyone prepared, because we didn't expect it. Here at the retirement community, our facility manager, Keith, apparently realized that this was going to be a really, really bad one. And it seems like he prepared beyond our expectations. Let me tell you some of the things that this community did that to this day still amaze me. I'm going to go over these things in no particular order, just as they came to me. But the first thing I remember is on the very first day was we were expecting to go to the dining room like we always do in the community center and have our meal. It's open from 10 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. And I did not realize what had happened in the outside world. I did not have power at that time, but I figured, we'll be back in no time at all. So I was planning to go to the dining room at the usual time, around 6 o'clock. At 11:30 in the morning, a knock came at the door, and it was one of our staff members who said, "I've been told to tell you to go eat at 11:30 in the bistro." That's the name of our dining room. I said, "Oh, we've been assigned a dining time. How nice." And so it began. It turns out that, of course, as all retirement communities must do, they had been practicing the incident command response team in the past, and had actually used it about a year and a half ago when we were out of water for a week here in the Asheville area. So the incident command team met twice a day. It included representatives from our resident council. After that meeting, they issued a written newsletter to tell us what was going on, because it turned out we had no communication whatsoever. Of course, there was no power, there was no cable for TV, and there was no cell service, so there was no internet. And the only way they could communicate with us was by written word. It was decided that also we needed to look after the welfare of our residents and make sure they were okay. We hadn't sustained any damage to the 3 apartment buildings, but 3 of the individual homes had been demolished. So team captains were appointed to be responsible for a certain section of each floor of the apartment buildings, and they were to knock on the door, check on the people, and deliver the newsletter. This later expanded to the area where the houses are located, where I live. I also had a captain who delivered the newsletter and knocked on my door. Our facility manager, Keith, ran the incident command team and gave out assignments to the management team members every day. Our CEO says that it was a wonderful experience because people just threw out ideas all the time. They brainstormed ideas freely, and if someone thought that it wouldn't work, then they thought about other ways to accomplish what they were trying to do. There was no way to order our food initially from our supplier, and our facility manager sent one of the employees over to Publix, where we heard you might be able to get a cell signal. However, he couldn't, and he ended up driving 4 hours to another town to get enough cell service to order our food. We were so happy when we saw that giant truck pulling in, because we knew we were going to have food, a lot of food, and there would be no problem with that, and also water. Now, our resident council members also met twice a day, and they created volunteer positions that any resident could sign up for, and that helped a great deal. One of our first meetings was on a Sunday, several days after the hurricane struck, and it included the chaplain who said prayers and some of the members of the choir who sang hymns. After a few days, our water stopped. We had no running water. We were issued 1 bottle of water each. That eventually went up to 4 bottles per person per day, and that is what we are still collecting 1 month after the hurricane, because we still have no potable water. The only communication we were getting from the outside world was on radio. After a few days, the government meetings were broadcast, and a radio was set up in the lobby of our community center, and people were invited to gather to listen to the report for that day as to what was happening in the outside world. And this is when we first learned the extent of the damage, because we had no idea. We had no TV. We had not seen any photos or video, but we heard what was happening. These meetings were held at 10 and 4 every day. After the meeting, a management representative was present to answer any questions that the residents might have. We had no cell service. The community next door had no power, but they had Starlink. So a deal was made where we combined forces. We were able to get some communication out through our facilities manager, and they were able to get some power. Of course, our entire community center building with the 3 apartment buildings was on emergency generator, and they were fine with that. We in the houses, of course, did not have that, and we were in the dark at night. Now, we had experience with no water for a week in 2022, Christmas to New Year's. So we knew exactly what to do here, and that was drain the swimming pools into large containers and then fill large trash cans from those containers and place them in the lobby of every floor of the 3 apartment buildings. Residents would then come with a bucket and take some water to their apartment so that they could flush their toilets. In the houses, we would have the water delivered if we needed it. Fortunately, I had a bathtub full of water, so I used that for the toilet flushing. We wanted to keep track of our residents, and initially they were checked off as they came to get their water, but after a while they were checked off as we entered to pick up our food, and I'll tell you more about the food now. Initially, for the first few days, it was really chaotic picking up food because the dining room was closed to sit-down service because we had no employees initially. And the senior management dished out the food, and we were given boxes of food. However, the lines were so long. After that, it was decided that since some of the staff members had returned, they would box up the food and put it on tables and have us come alphabetically. That worked beautifully. In fact, after that, I never stood in line. So that worked really well. Great suggestion. On the 6th day, snacks arrived and were put out. First of all, we were given a care package, and this was delivered to our house or apartment, and it contained all kinds of snacks. And that was on the, I'd say maybe the 3rd day. It was great because we really had limited food up until that time. So having these snacks was great. Then they became available in the dining room area where we picked up our food, and there were so many snacks. So we never went hungry, that is for sure. After a while, the main auditorium became the distribution center, and that's where all the cases and cases of water was stored. Tables were set up, and we also distributed dog and cat food and rolls of toilet paper for people who needed it. The front desk became unusually busy, and it was now staffed with 2 staff members, which helped a great deal. On the 1st day, cleanup began in our community. Trucks came down the street and started removing the leaves, and within days, tree limbs that had fallen were starting to be cleared and chopped. It was really fast. On October 2nd, a sign-in list was put in the lobby for people who wanted to make a cell phone call. I'm not sure how they set that up, but some people needed to contact others in their family, and they could sign up for a 10-minute call. Housekeeping, of course, stopped. We have housekeeping included with our monthly fee, but all the independent residents did not receive it all during this time because the focus was on skilled nursing and assisted living, where they really needed the housekeepers. And most of them had not been able to get in, so the ones that were here were sent to those areas. People could not get in touch with us for many, many days from the outside, and so some resorted to messages through the public website. And our human relations director, she took those requests and searched down the people they were looking for and then let them know that they were okay. Fortunately, no resident and no staff member was injured or killed during this hurricane, so we were very grateful for that. We had spiritual and mental health support available through our 2 chaplains, and a number of ordained ministers who live here volunteered their services as well. As soon as possible, fitness classes on a limited schedule were resumed to give people something to do. One night there was a sing-along in the lobby, and on another day they had an open mic writer's read, which is when people who have written things went up to the mic and read them. We were doing all these things to keep people from being completely bored in their home without power or any kind of things to do. There had been an Alzheimer's walk scheduled in the city, and this is a pretty big deal. A lot of people participate from our community, but of course that was all canceled, and our resident life staff had a mini Alzheimer's walk. They led a fairly large group of people through the streets and around the neighborhoods on an Alzheimer's walk. Our facilities director immediately applied for a Starlink communications system, at least for administration to be able to get messages out the next time we have loss of cell and power and everything else. We are currently involved in a project called From Storm to Strength, a community gratitude project, resident staff and campers art project to express gratitude and resilience through artful creativity. It's all laid out on a table and people can put art on it. And that brings me to an amazing thing that we did here. In order to have our staff members come back to work they needed a place for their children to go because the schools have been closed. And we set up daycare in the church that is in our property, and staff members and volunteers managed it, which really was helpful. And I think we had about 16 children enrolled. So that is some of the things that we did that helped us bounce back, really. They were amazing, and through the collaboration between residents and staff, we were able to do incredible things here. For example, initially we were brought potable water, but one day I was walking Corky and there was a tanker truck taking water from our fire hydrant, and the man there said, "Oh yes, we're taking this water to the emergency workers." And I said, "Well, that's great." He said, "I know we brought water to you initially." And I said, "Yeah, and now you're taking it back." If you have any stories about how your community survived during Hurricane Helene, please put them in the comments below. I feel that not only did we survive, but we are thriving. And I and everyone here is so grateful to our staff, and in particular, our facilities manager and our CEO who led us through this. Thank you for watching, and if you'd like more detailed information on how we coped, I did post 10 videos on my playlist, my Hurricane Helene playlist, that you are welcome to view. And again, thanks for watching,